Okay, Mashaya, are you ready for our book club? Malala, my story standing up for girls' rights. Malala, my story of standing up for girls' rights. So I picked this book. I'm excited to read it. I've not read it before. So I'm going to read it with you. And when I'm finished, I'm going to give you the book. Okay? So this girl, I'll tell you what I know and some interesting things too. This girl, Malala, she's the same age as me. Miss Kane and Malala, we were born in the same year, 1997. So right now we're both 24. So it's crazy that she, at the same time that I was going to school, was fighting for her rights to be able to go to school. So I'm excited to read and learn more about this girl. Are you ready? I'm going to read her note. It says, to all the children all over the world who have no access to education, to those teachers who bravely continue teaching, and to anyone who has fought for their basic human rights and education. You can look through the contents and see what we will be reading. Prologue. So this is not yet chapter 1, but before. I am Malala. When I close my eyes, I can see my bedroom. The bed is unmade because I've rushed out for school, late for an exam. On my desk, my school schedule is open to the page dated October 9th, 2012. I can hear the neighborhood kids playing in the alley behind our home. I can hear my little brothers fighting over the TV remote. I can smell rice cooking as my mother works in the kitchen. Then I hear my father's deep voice calling out my nickname. Janie, he says, which is Parisian for dear one. I left my beloved home in Pakistan that morning, planning to dive back into bed when I returned from school, and ended up a world away. When I open my eyes, I am in my new bedroom. It is in a sturdy brick house in a damp and chilly place called Birmingham, England. Here, there is hardly a sound. No children laughing and yelling. No women downstairs chopping vegetables and gossiping with my mother. Through the thick walls between us, I hear someone in my family crying for home. Then my father bursts through the front door, his voice booming. Janie, he says. But there is worry in his voice, as if he fears I won't be there to reply. That is because it was not so long ago that somebody tried to hurt me, simply because I was speaking out about my right to go to school. That day in October 2012 was an ordinary day. I was 15 in grade 9, and I had overslept because I'd stayed up far too late the night before, studying for my exam. My mother gently shook my shoulder. Wake up, Pushu, she said, calling me kitten, in Pashto, the language spoken by my family's tribe, the Pashtun. It's 7:30, and you're late for school. I said a quick prayer to God. If it is your will, Allah, may I please come in first on the exam? Oh, and thank you for all my success so far. I gulped down my breakfast while my youngest brother, Atal, whined. I was getting too much extra attention for speaking publicly about girls and boys having the same right to go to school, he complained. When Malala is prime minister someday, you can be her secretary, joked my father. No, cried Atal, the little clown in the family. She will be my secretary. I raced out the door and down the lane just in time to see the school bus crammed with other girls on their way to school. I never saw my home again. That afternoon, my classmates and I stared down at our test. trying to think over the honking horns and factory noises of our hometown of Mingora. By the end of the day, I was tired but happy. I knew I had done well. I asked my best friend, Moniba, to wait with me for the late bus so we could talk longer. We told jokes and laughed until we stepped into the Dyna, the open-backed white truck that was our Kashul school bus. As usual, our bus driver, Usman Baijan, had a magic trick to show us. That day, he made a pebble disappear. No matter how we tried, we couldn't figure out his secret. 19 girls, 2 teachers, and I bounced along Haji Baba Road, a mix of brightly colored rickshaws, women in flowing robes, men on scooters, honking and zigzagging through the traffic. Our bus had no windows, just a yellow plastic sheet that flapped against the side. We were not more than 3 minutes from my house when the truck stopped suddenly. It was oddly quiet outside. "It's so calm today," I said to Moniba. "Where are all the people?" I don't remember anything after that. Here's the story that's been told to me. 2 young men in white robes stepped in front of our truck. One of them jumped onto the back, and we leaned under the plastic sheet. "Who is Malala?" he asked. No one said a word, but a few girls looked in my direction. The man raised his arm and pointed at me. Some of the girls screamed, and I squeezed Moniba's hand. "Who is Malala?" "I am Malala, and this is my story." Oh, that is a powerful start. Okay, are you ready for part 1? It's titled Before the Danger. So probably before this happened on the bus. 1. As free as a bird. I am Malala Yousafzai, a girl like any other. Although I do have my special talents. I can crack the knuckles of my fingers and my toes whenever I want. I can beat someone twice my age at arm wrestling. I like cupcakes, but not candy. And I don't think dark chocolate should be called chocolate at all. I don't care for makeup and jewelry, and I'm not a girly girl. But my favorite color is pink. I say that if you check a boy's backpack, it will always be a mess. If you check his uniform, it will be dirty. This is not my opinion. This is just fact. I am a Pashtun, a member of a proud tribe of people spread across Afghanistan and Pakistan. My father, Ziudini, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and my mother, Tor Pakai, are from mountain villages. After they married, they moved to Mingora, the largest city in the Swat Valley, which is in the northwest of my beloved country of Pakistan. And they have a drawing of the country. Pakistan is colored, and up north is Mingora. Okay. I was born in 1997 in the Swat Valley, which is known for its beauty, its tall mountains, green hills, and crystal clear rivers. I am named for a brave young Pashtun girl named Malali of Mawawand in Afghanistan. In a battle hundreds of years ago, Malali inspired warriors with her courage, but I don't believe in fighting. I say that even though I argue with my brother Kishal all the time. He is 2 years younger than me. We argue over who's the better student, over who ate the last of the cheesy Wotsits, over whatever you can think of. My other brother, Atal, annoys me less. He is 6 years younger than me. He is quite good at chasing down the cricket ball when we kick it out of bounds, but he also makes up his own rules sometimes. When I was younger and these brothers came along, I had a little talk with God. God, I said, you did not check with me before sending these two. They're quite inconvenient sometimes. Still, at home in Pakistan, my brothers and I ran like a pack of rabbits, playing tags or hopscotch and thief and police. Sometimes we rang the bell at someone else's house, then ran away and hid. Our favorite, though, was cricket, which we played day and night in the alley by our house or up on our flat roof. When I had enough of my brothers, I'd go downstairs and knock on the wall between our house and my friend Safina's. 2 taps, that was our code. She'd tap in reply. Safina is a couple of years younger than me, but we were very close. We often copied each other, but once I thought she had gone too far when my only toy, a pink plastic cell phone my father had given me, went missing. That afternoon, when I went to play with Safina, she had the same phone. She said it was hers, but I didn't believe her. When she wasn't looking, I took a pair of her earrings. The next day, a necklace. When my mother found out, she was so upset she wouldn't look at me. Safina stole from me first, I cried. But that didn't matter to my mother. You are older, Malala, she said. You should have set a good example. I felt shame, knowing that my father would be so disappointed in me. But when he came home, he didn't scold me. He knew I was being hard on myself already. Instead, he told me that all children make mistakes, even heroes like Martin Luther King Jr., the American civil rights activist, and Mahatma Gandhi, the great peace activist of India. Then he shared a saying that his father used to tell him: a child is a child when he's a child, even if he's a prophet. He meant that even people who do great things can do childish things because they were children once. Our Pashtun tribe believes in badal, or revenge. One bad action must be answered by another. I thought Safina had stolen from me, so I stole from her. But my taste of badal was bitter. Safina and I quickly got back to being friends, and I vowed then that I would never seek revenge again. For as long as I can remember, our house had been full of people, a never-ending stream of neighbors, relatives, and friends of my father. One of the most important parts of being a Pashtun is always opening your door to a visitor. In the back of our house, my mother and the women would gather and cook and laugh and talk about new clothes, jewelry, and other ladies in the neighborhood. My father and the men would sit in the men's guest room and drink tea and talk politics. I would sometimes wander away from the children's games, tiptoe through the crowd of women, and join the men, drinking in every word about the big world beyond our valley. After a while, I would go to the women to listen to their whispers and their laughter. My favorite part: the scarves and veil coverings their head were gone. Their long, dark hair and pretty faces, made up with lipstick and henna, were lovely to see. Where I grew up, women follow the code of purdah, where they are separated from men and cover themselves in public. Some, like my mother, draped scarves over their faces. Others covered themselves with long, flowing black robes, and sometimes even black gloves and socks. They hid every bit of their skin, even their eyes. But when the women were away from men, they would show their beautiful faces, and I would see a whole new world. I always wondered how it felt to live in hiding. Even as a little girl, I told my parents that no matter what the other girls did, I would never cover my face like that. My mother and some of our other relatives were shocked, but my father said I could do as I wished. Malala will live as free as a bird, he told everyone. I knew that I was the apple of my father's eye, a rare thing for a Pakistani girl. When a boy is born in Pakistan, it's cause for celebration. Gifts are placed in the baby's cot. The boy's name is inscribed on the family tree. But when a girl is born, no one visits the parents. My father paid no mind to these customs. I've seen my name in bright blue ink right there among the male names of our family tree. Mine was the first female name in 300 years. Sometimes, when I thought about the future, I remember the kite flying contest we had as kids. The boys who wanted to win tried to cut the other kids' kite strings. I always felt a bit sad to see the pretty kites sputter to the ground. I worried that my future could be cut down just like those kites, simply because I was a girl. As Safina and I got older, we'd be expected to cook and clean for our brothers. We couldn't be lawyers or engineers, fashion designers or artists, or most other things we dreamed of. And we wouldn't be allowed to go outside our homes without a male relative to accompany us. I often wondered how free I could ever really be. My father was hopeful. "Look at this girl," said my father with pride when I learned to read. "She is destined for the skies." I was far luckier than most girls in one other way, too. My father ran a school, the Kashal School. It was a humble place with nothing more than blackboards and chalk, and it was right next to a smelly river. But to me, it was a paradise. My father did every job in the school. He was the teacher, the principal, and the janitor. After you paid the school's bills, not much money was left for food. But the school had been my father's dream, and we were all happy to be living it. My parents tell me when I was first learning to walk, I toddled into the empty classrooms and gave lessons in my own baby talk. As I grew, I sat in on classes. I couldn't wait to wear the uniforms I saw the big girls wearing when they arrived each day. Shalwar kameez, a long, deep blue shirt and loose white pants, and a white headscarf. When it was finally time for me to be a student, I was so excited I could hardly contain myself. You could say I grew up in school. The school was my world, and my world was the school. Ready for chapter 2? I'm gonna adjust. Sorry, my computer is on a chair. Chapter 2, A Magic Pencil. Every spring and fall, my family visited one of my favorite places on earth, Shangala. Shangla? Again, not sure if I'm saying that right. The mountain village where my parents grew up. It was a 4-hour trip by bus along roads that followed the Swat River on one side and hugged sheer cliffs on the other. As we climbed higher and higher, my brothers pointed out the cars or buses that had fallen into the valley below. Eventually, the air turned cool and crisp, and we saw nothing but mountain after mountain. Mountain, 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 and just a sliver of sky. Though most people in the village were very poor, our family always put on a feast when we arrived, especially when it was the holiday of Small Eid, which marks the end of Ramadan, the holiest month of the year in our religion, Islam. During Ramadan, followers of Islam, who are called Muslims, go without food all day, from sunrise to sunset, to focus on prayer and to remember all that God has given us. On Small Eid, our family shared bowls of chicken and rice, spinach and lamb, apples, pretty yellow cakes, and kettles of sweet milky tea. We brought boxes of sweets and other gifts we had stacked on top of the bus. Looks like a poster. What is Ramadan? What is Small Eid? What is Big Eid? Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. It is considered the holiest month, in which Muslims all over the world reflect on their faith by praying with increased devotion. reading the Holy Quran, spending time with family, giving to charity, and fasting each day from sunrise to sunset. Families and friends often share a meal together after the sun goes down. Small Eid, which is also known as Eid al-Fitr, is a 3-day celebration marking the end of Ramadan, with feasts, family visits, and gifts, especially for kids. In Dhul al-Hijjah, which is the 12th month of the Islamic calendar, is the Eid ul-Azha, or the Feast of Sacrifice. This is Big Eid, and it is celebrated to commemorate the sacrifice of the Prophet Abraham in the way of Allah. The spirit of Eid ul-Azha lies in the concept of sharing Allah's blessings with your loved ones, as well as the underprivileged people around you. In my cousin's eyes, I was a city girl. They teased me because I didn't like to go barefoot and wore clothes from the market, not homemade like theirs. If only they knew that people from the cities like Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, would have thought that I was a country girl. When we were together in the village, we all lived the country life. When the rooster crowed, we spilled out of the houses to greet the day. We ate honey from the hive and green plums sprinkled with salt. None of us had toys or books, so we played hopscotch and cricket in a gully. Life for women in the mountains was not easy. There were no proper shops, no hospitals or female doctors. Like women in Megora, the women of Shangla also covered their faces. They could not meet or speak to men who were not their close relatives. None of them could read, not even my own mother, who'd grown up in the village. Many girls in the village didn't go to school. People thought it was less important than it was for boys, since a girl would be married off at a young age to live with her husband's family. Why send her to school? The men often say. She doesn't need an education to run a house. I would never talk back to my elders. In my culture, one must never disrespect one's elders, even if they are wrong. But when I saw how hard these women's lives were, I was confused and sad. Why were women treated so poorly in our country? I asked my father. He told me that life was even worse for women in Afghanistan, the country next to ours, where a dangerous group called the Taliban had taken over. The Taliban disapproved of most actions seen as Western, something that might be acceptable in the United States, Canada, or European countries. They claimed that Western beliefs and behaviors were not appropriate based on their very strict version of Islam, one that twists the true Islamic beliefs in a way that threatens the rights of others. In Afghanistan, schools for girls had been destroyed, and all women were forced to wear a head-to-toe veil that only had a tiny window for their eyes. It was called a burqa. Women were banned from laughing out loud or wearing nail polish, and they were sometimes put in jail for walking without a male family member. Hearing such things, I thanked God that I lived in Pakistan, where a girl was free to go to school. I didn't realize that the Taliban weren't only in Afghanistan. There was another group in Pakistan, and they would soon come to cast a dark shadow over my sunny childhood. My father told me not to worry. I will protect your freedom, Malala, he said. Carry on with your dreams. By the time I was 8 years old, my father's school had expanded to 3 buildings and had more than 800 students. Because most families paid to send their children to school, our family finally had enough money to buy a TV. Sometimes Safina and I watched Shakalaka Boom Boom, a show about a boy named Sanju who can make anything real by drawing it with a magic pencil. If he was hungry, he'd draw a bowl of curry, and it appeared. If he was in danger, he drew a policeman. He was a little hero, always protecting people. I began to dream about a magic pencil of my own. At night, I would pray, God, please give me Sanju's pencil. I won't tell anyone. Just leave it in my cupboard. I will use it to make everyone happy. Then I would check the drawer, but the pencil was never there. I really wanted the magic pencil when my mother asked me to take the trash to the dump near our house. Then I could have erased it all, the smell, the rats, the giant mountain of rotting food. I was about to toss our potato peels and eggshells into the garbage heap one afternoon when I saw something move. I jumped. It was a girl my age, and she and some boys nearby were sorting through the trash. I wanted to talk to them, but I was scared. Later that night, I asked my father about the children. Why weren't they in school? He told me that these children sold what they found at the dump to help feed their families. If they went to school, their families would go hungry. I realized then that God must have been showing me what my life might be like if I couldn't go to school. There was no such thing as a magic pencil to change the world. I would have to do something. But what? I wrote a letter to God asking for the strength and courage to make the world a better place. I signed my letter, rolled it up, tied it to a piece of wood, placed a dandelion on top, and floated it in a stream that flows into the Swat River. Surely God would find it there. As much as I wanted to help the children from the dump, my mother wanted to help everyone. She often had an extra pot of rice and chicken to feed a poor family in our neighborhood. I asked her once why she always gave food away. We have known what it is like to be hungry, Pisho, she said. We must never forget to share what we have. Chapter 3, Warnings. One night I opened our door to 6 elders from our village, as well as a frowning man who said he was a mufti, or an Islamic scholar. My father shooed me into the other room, but I heard every word. The man said he had a problem with our school. I am representing good Muslims, and we all think you should close your girls' high school, he said. Teenage girls should not be going to school. They should be in Purdah. This mufti clearly believed that girls did not have equal rights to an education. What we knew, but the mufti did not, was that his own niece attended my father's school in secret. As my father debated with the mufti, one of the other men spoke up. He was surprised to see multiple copies of the Holy Quran, our holy book, in our home. Of course, my father said, I am Muslim. My father and the men came to a compromise. Older girls would enter through a different gate. Even as the door shut behind them, I had a knot in my stomach, thinking of the mufti. I knew this man was mistaken. There was nothing un-Islamic about girls going into school. My parents sent me to an open-air madrasa, a school where boys and girls together studied the Holy Quran, which we believed to be the word of God, or Allah. The Holy Quran is written in Arabic. I loved the sounds of the prayers and the stories about how to live a life according to the teachings of a sacred book. While my madrasa classmates could recite the Holy Quran, they didn't learn what the words actually meant. I was the only one who wanted to learn the meanings of the Arabic words, who did the rest of my lessons, science, math, and literature, at the Kashal school. I didn't think much of this difference until later, after the mufti's visit to our house. One day, the neighborhood children were choosing up sides for a game of cricket, and one of the boys said he didn't want me on his team. Our school is better than yours, he said, as if that explained things. He meant the madrasa. I didn't agree one bit. My school is the better one, I said. Your school is bad, he insisted. It is not on the straight path of Islam. I didn't know how to respond, but I knew he was wrong. The Kashal school was the best place in the country, was the best place. In a country where women aren't allowed in public without a man, the other girls and I could travel far and wide inside the pages of our books. Can we skip a page? No. The Kashal school was the best place. In a country where women aren't allowed in public without a man, the other girls and I could travel far and wide inside the pages of our books. In a country where we would soon be expected to keep away from our male schoolmates, we ran as free as the wind. We didn't know where our education would take us. We just wanted a chance to learn in peace. Once we dropped our school bags inside the Kashal school, we had the same worries as any school kid. Who would get the highest grade on the day's test? And who would sit with whom at recess? We worked hard and we laughed together. How could a place where I learned so much and laughed so much be so bad? That's part 2.